bow down now as I open the way. This is now your moment to die." He slowly raised his machete high into the air. Something in that physical movement provoked another loud snap inside my head. Everything became brighter, lucid, all the colors sharper. Just then Mahi pushed into my mind, and my eyes glanced over toward the bay, and at that exact moment Alejandro attacked. My eyes watched him come as if in slow motion, allowing plenty of time for me to move in a quick feint to the left, then sharply to the right. I stepped just beyond the tip of the swinging blade and swung my stick, clobbering my attacker solidly in the groin. Alejandro gave out an agonized scream and went rolling downhill 20 feet, then off over a little cliff, landing with a dull thump and a final sudden cry of pain. I could see lots of blood, and the machete's blade sticking at least 6 inches into the dead Brujo's chest. That could just as easily have been me dead, not him. My bones were still shaking, but I felt I had to get distance from the visual atrocity, so I turned and headed up the steep incline till I came to a low, flat rock where I couldn't see Alejandro. Still wearing my backpack, I sat down and looked out over the bay below me. I just sat there, doing and thinking absolutely nothing. And at some point, an almost soothing sensation of fog engulfed my awareness. I was almost not present at all. It felt as if my life flow had come to an end. Finally, I started to regain a touch of my normal senses. First, my hearing tuned into the sound of small birds flittering around in the trees here and there along the slope, and I could hear a solitary cricket chirping away steadily and quite loudly somewhere over to my left. I sucked in some fresh, cool Atitlan air. That guy down there had deserved to die. He'd done his level best to chop my head off, and I hadn't even performed the ultimate act of slaughter. He'd fallen on his own sword. Those babbling thoughts dried up, and I was again just sitting there, praying for Mahi to appear. I opened my backpack and, without thinking, took out both the jade phallus and the round, smooth stone I'd chosen in El Maestro's garden. I unwrapped the jade, put it upright on its cloth, then placed my rough stone right beside it, volcanic black and jade green, upright erection and edgeless sphere, male and female. Mahi or no Mahi, I knew what had to be done. Just smash the goddamn thing to smithereens. Use El Maestro's ceremonial stone to obliterate any lingering presence and power of Alejandro. I took the heavy sphere into both hands, looked out over the bay where the Xocomil was whipping tiny waves across the blue surface. I knew if I thought about what I was going to do, I'd stop. Mahi should be the one to decide, but I could feel power flowing into my arms. As if some Mayan god were in charge of the flow of time and not me at all, an old wooden fishing boat was rounding the point at the entrance to the bay. I put the stone down. There she was, her left hand behind her, gripping the engine's metal lever, steering the boat. She'd come by lake and boat, not by land and tunnel. A rush of elation hit me. I watched as she brought her small open boat closer into the bay, and a couple of minutes later she cut the engine and slid onto the shore, stepped barefoot into the cool water, and walked onto the beach, sitting down to pull on her shoes. I registered that she wasn't dressed in any ceremonial garb. She was in faded blue Levi's and a soft blue pullover sweater. I glanced down at the jade piece and the round stone before me, and on impulse started to put both of them away in my pack, but then I didn't. I just sat there while she headed quickly up the trail I'd taken with Alejandro back a lifetime ago. When she passed Alejandro's body, she paused and just stood there, looking over at him for a very long time, without moving. Then she slowly raised her eyes and looked up, and saw me on the rock 100 feet from her, my expression still stunned, but my eyes hot on her as she approached. She came right up to me and bent over and grabbed my face in both her hands and kissed me with a rough passion that helped to draw me out. Then she sat cross-legged on the flat-topped boulder across from me, the 2 stone pieces between us on the cloth. "Bit late, aren't you?" I finally said in English. "Looks like I'm just on time," she replied evenly. "What?" I reacted. "Did you actually plan all this?" "Juan, not at all. There was trouble with Timothy. It's over, but I'm late. And who knows, perhaps it was destiny that the 2 Nocalitos would meet face to face. Abierta, she must have felt certain of the outcome. And I see that you've already begun the ceremony." She reached for the jade piece and slipped it into her bag. "Please, come do this with me," she said quietly. "I might require your assistance." And without waiting for an answer, she stood up and went striding up the steep trail. "Hey," I shouted, "you made me kill that guy." She paused and looked back. No. His own beliefs and actions brought his death. "Are you coming?" "You keep assuming," I told her, "that I'm part of your devious family drama, but I'm just some average guy from California in love with some crazy Guatemalan girl." "And why were you out there in the open in that boat?" I went on. "They're going to find you and take you over to Bernardo if they don't just shoot you." "I am done hiding," she said, "and time was of the essence. We must now go into the bowels of Caban with the jade." "Hey, if Alejandro'd cut off my head," I went on, "would you be going into the bowels of Caban to let him do what he wanted with this thing? Hey?" She stared me down. I never even once allowed that possibility to enter my mind. I was with you all the way. Well, it was close. Too goddamn close. "All I know," she said, "is that I'm going into the volcano with the jade, and I ask you to come with me. My father is still being held, and I fear what Bernardo will do when he hears that Alejandro is dead." And so, yeah, I stuffed the round stone into my backpack, got up, and hurried with her up the trail. We came to a hidden opening among the cliffs, and without hesitation entered the dark, dank crack of Caban. A slight chilly outflow of metallic air was coming up from the black interior. Mai had a flashlight, and she led me for 5 minutes or so into the depths of the cave, until we came to a place where the cave split into 2. She knew instantly which to choose, and after several more minutes we rounded a curve, and the cavern opened up from head height into a large natural volcanic dome. Seeming to know the place well, Mai found a dozen tallow candles and proceeded to light up the cavern with bright yellow flickerings that managed to hold their own against the blankness of the volcanic rock surrounding us. Without hesitation, she positioned the jade on a large flat ceremonial stone in the middle of the domed room, and then she sat down cross-legged before it. "Join me, please," she said. Speaking for the first time in the cave, her voice echoed, even though she was almost whispering. "No," I told her bluntly, "I'm not doing any ceremony with that thing." "Then please just sit and trust me." I sat. "Do you remember," I asked, "the very first thing back in the museum?" "Yes, you asked me whether this thing was used on virgins in the old days. Well, what else would it be used for?" "So Alejandro," I said, "intended to bring you in here and get you naked and somehow, ceremoniously or whatever, stick that thing inside you." "Traditionally," she said, "the ceremony would last hours. I learned all the ancient chants and procedures from Abierta. We explored the entire process in detail, looking to discover the new way through fully comprehending the old." "Well, that sounds seriously sick," I said. "And hey, if that was Alejandro's intent, then he got what he had coming." "Let it go," she said. "You and I must right now do our very best to discover and empower whatever newness might choose to rise up." "All right then," I said. "What must we do?" One of the candles suddenly flickered in an unseen interior breeze and went out. "Juan, I have no idea what comes next," she muttered. "Abierta didn't tell you?" "Abierta doesn't know." "You have no intent here at all?" "I only know," she told me, "that it's essential to become quiet and stay fully open to receive." She closed her eyes. She looked so fragile to me right then, so innocent and vulnerable and helpless, that I felt a sudden hot anger flare out at Alejandro, at Bernardo, at the whole fucking male-dominated universe that seemed to be demonically intent upon attacking this remarkable woman. I scowled at the jade erection and again felt the urge to just grab it and smash it to bits. The urge passed, and without thinking, I closed my eyes. I found my thoughts immediately buzzing with a wild mess of images and voices that I couldn't quite identify. I realized that my left shoulder was aching intensely from something that had happened back down the hill with Alejandro. I remembered that bizarre electric feeling in my body, that moment when I swung at the brujo with the stick and clobbered him in his genitals. My eyes opened, and I glanced at Mahi. She looked so scary right then, so primal and inward-focused, that my eyes closed again. As I took my next breath, I could distinctly smell Gabon's dank, chilled odor, and with that scent came a sudden loud, clear pop inside my head. All my thoughts dropped away, and I found myself sitting quite upright, feeling entirely here, present and alert, deep within this uncharted Guatemalan cave, with this remarkable woman who somehow right then meant just absolutely everything to me. She was now making some random low growling sounds, which grew louder, began to change timbre and tone, as she chanted something quite specific in what I assumed was Tzutuhil, chanting two phrases over and over, very quietly, then louder and louder, until her voice seemed to break free from her body, echoing until I could hear many voices at once, echoing all the way inward to wake up the very depths of Gabon. At first I contracted against the chanting, but then I found myself becoming more and more immersed in the pure, resonant, godlike sensation of her voice. My body began swaying slightly to her organic rhythm, and my eyes opened on their own. I found myself staring with total fixation right at the jade piece. Mahi's body was now more energized, her arms and head moving gracefully with her chanting. Then those movements became more ragged and agitated, and her voice more guttural, building into a wild cacophony that then abruptly stopped altogether. "Totally clear, shatter the jade," she said loudly in Spanish, to the cave and to Caban, to Abierta and the universe at large. And while still in her self-induced trance, she turned her head and looked right at me. I, in turn, knew what to do. I reached into my pack and felt the cold smoothness of my stone, and took it out and placed it into her awaiting fingers. She held the stone low against her belly for a long moment. Then she raised and held the volcanic ball high over her head in both hands as she again started chanting, louder and louder, in an entirely different tone and tempo, low down and gruff like a seasoned male priest. She chanted louder and faster, and then I saw the stone begin its inevitable descending arc downward to strike and shatter that goddamn... At that same moment, vaguely out the corner of my left eye, I saw fast-moving hands grab the stone roughly out of her fingers. Something hard and heavy crashed down against the top of my head as hands grabbed both of our bodies from behind. Mahi's voice dropped into a muffled gasp, and then silence. I was yanked upright onto my feet and turned to look right into the bloodshot eyes of Quemado. "Fuck," I said. "But how did you find us?" He sneered at me. "You are the idiot. It was so simple. Your other lover, while you were playing dirty games inside the blonde whore, we put a GPS tracker into the heel of your left boot. And look at the big fat fish we caught."